Previously on Beyond the Lens, I hinted that there'd be another update episode to follow. However, due to some unforeseen circumstances, that episode is going to be delayed. But in the meantime, we'll be doing some Halloween-themed episodes. Are you nostalgic, a parent, or perhaps a child at heart? When it comes to children's media, from books to TV shows, and even movies, there's often more than meets the eye. Is it well written? Does it still hold up today? What works and what doesn't? Or maybe you wonder what went on behind the scenes of that work. Together, a trio of adults who are also kids at heart will critique and comment on one piece of children's media each episode.
Hello, this is Eric.
Hi, I'm PJ.
And I'm Rico. You're listening to Beyond the Lens, a family-friendly podcast. Hi everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of Beyond the Lens. This is our second and final Halloween episode. I know it's past Halloween, there were several delays, but it's better late than never. And so today's episode is about a very underrated Nickelodeon series, if I may say so. It's called House of Anubis. So I must ask, PJ, how familiar are you with House of Anubis?
Well, when I think it came out when I was in middle school, and I definitely would see the theme song come up constantly. So the opening credits, I guess, or of them introducing the actors and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And it would usually air when I would have to go to school. So I never actually sat down and watched the show. It also wasn't really my type of show, as I was more interested in cartoons when I was a kid. So I never really paid attention to it. But when you said that we were going to cover the show, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'll just give it a shot because it does seem kind of interesting. And even as an adult, I watched the series completely through. I mean, I forgot a lot of the small little details about it, but I think I'm now officially caught up to at least all the seasons. I know you mentioned there was also a movie. I didn't get to that one, but I know most of the show pretty well at this point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm also very familiar with it. I actually have a side blog on Tumblr dedicated to this show.
That's right.
It's The Assyrian is Chosen. And for a while, I was one of the only ones, and so I was posting House of Anubis stuff, and then slowly but surely the fandom sort of came back. There was resurgence, and now there's a lot of House of Anubis fans on Tumblr again, and elsewhere as well. So House of Anubis is actually based on a Dutch show, Het House Anubis, which really only the first season really followed the original's plotline closely. I've seen a few episodes of the Dutch show with English subtitles. Most of them were later blocked on YouTube for copyright reasons, but someone else later took up the project, and now the full series with English subtitles is out there on Google Drive on a special site. And honestly, I've been meaning to check out the English subtitle episodes. I've just been too busy to really find time to watch it.
So you haven't seen the Dutch version?
I mean, I've seen I'd say the first season for sure, some of the second season, and then that's when YouTube's copyright bots started getting all haywire. Now most of them are blocked, but someone else recently took up the effort, and like I said, the full series is now out on Google Drive with English subtitles. I just haven't been able to find the time to just sit down and watch it.
Ah, okay.
And also before there was House of Anubis, there was a German remake of the Dutch show, Das Haus Anubis, which actually followed the original Dutch show more closely than House of Anubis did. Shortly after that, there was a pilot being produced at the BBC, which was basically an English adaptation of the Dutch show. And I only found this out maybe a year ago, a few months. Basically, it sounds like a full pilot was actually produced for this adaptation. It's currently a form of lost media. It had an entirely different cast and maybe would have been a bit closer to the original Dutch show. Uh, anyway, Nickelodeon ended up buying the rights to the series in March 2010, and it was put into production shortly after that. And that sort of brings up a side note. Het House Anubis, the original Dutch show, had 114 episodes in its first season. House of Anubis only had 60,
Oh, wow.
so I can attribute much of the rewrites essentially to having to cut the whole story in half, and more or less they wrote new stuff for the next two seasons. Some of the differences between the Dutch and English version in the first season, and we'll go into a little bit more of the details a bit later. The mystery of Jory's disappearance and the search for the cup were actually two different storylines and not interconnected in any way. This is in the Dutch version. And then the English character Rufus Zeno was actually based on two separate characters in the Dutch version, Rufus Malpede and Zeno Terpstra. I'm pretty sure I just butchered the last names in the pronunciation. And then the Chosen One storyline, as present in the first season of House of Anubis, didn't actually appear on the Dutch show until season two. And unlike House of Anubis, Ninka, who is the Dutch equivalent to Nina, actually is not the Chosen One. And I won't spoil who the Chosen One is here in case anyone wants to go and watch it for themselves. And then finally, Anubis House is not really at a boarding school. It's more so, I guess, a better translation would be a boarding house, which is something a little bit more common in Eastern European countries. Basically, it's like children whose parents are busy with work or whatever and are unable to care for the children full time can have them move into a boarding house while they go continue their education at a public school. And so that's sort of how it was set up in the Dutch show. And so it was changed to a boarding school in the English adaptation.
So, Rico, for those that haven't seen the show, can you explain who the Chosen One is and how that comes to be?
Yeah, so the Chosen One is basically someone described to be a direct descendant of Amneris. That's the common thread in both versions. And then they're deeply connected to the mystery, and they have special powers in a sense. It's sort of hard to explain because, like I said, there are some differences between the two. In the English version, the Chosen One is the person who needs to essentially rebuild the cup of ink and is the only one who can do it at the chosen hour. Whereas in the Dutch show, where that Chosen One threadline didn't even start, then the cup was just hidden. And once they found the cup, that's when the Chosen One's powers sort of came into play with a curse in a sense. Like I said, I haven't seen the Dutch show all that much, but from what I understand, the Chosen One in the Dutch show basically was needed for a certain ceremony involving the cup, and like I said, Nina wasn't the Chosen One in that version. It was someone else. I guess that sort of explains it's someone. I probably did a terrible job explaining it.
Well, I don't think I could have explained it any better. I mean, it is kind of complicated in the English version.
There's obviously been a lot of differences between the Dutch and English version.
I hear from people that they prefer the Dutch version because it made more sense and it ran for a longer period of time. So they had more time to explain things. And supposedly it wasn't as cringy as the American version. I don't know what they mean by that, but that's just what I've heard online. So, based on that assumption, I mean, I'm not really gonna say if I prefer the American version over those versions. It's hard to do that when I haven't seen the original version, especially. I mean, typically remakes are not favored, but you got to give the remake a chance. So I'm for the sake of that, I'm not going to say what my opinion is, or I don't really even have one, to be honest. But Yeah, I did enjoy the American version. I think the only thing that I do agree with right now is the fact that it does feel like it was a bit rushed in some areas. And then in other points, it was just kind of like slow progressing. It was kind of like a weird mix of both. And
Hmm.
I wasn't really sure how to kind of watch it full on, or how do I explain this? It was hard for me to kind of get a grasp on some concepts, like how the chosen one came to be or what they even learned at the boarding school. To this day, I still don't know like what the boarding school was really even for, because it's like we didn't really get to see like their life outside of the classroom other than the adventures that they would go on or like the things that they would do with all the stuff that I'm not going to give away any spoilers, but all the stuff that they did with putting together stuff, I should say. And so it was just kind of interesting to me that some like I've never seen anything like it where some areas were just completely I'm not thought of. Some areas were just like very weirdly put together. It
Hmm.
still made sense, but like I wish they would have spent more time like explaining all the other stuff. Explaining like, why Nina chose to go to that school or why certain things came to be. I don't know if I'm making any sense here, but like yeah, it just felt really weirdly timed to me.
Yeah, well, I can tell you this much. Basically, in the original Dutch version, Nina and her gran, essentially, they both actually lived in the same country, and this where the school was. And basically, Nina's gran was moving into like an elderly folks' home, and it was when Nina went to visit her gran that she came across the painting of the house that Nina was staying in, and that's when she runs into Sarah for the first time. And so I'm not sure if that was something you thought was a little confusing with Sarah just somehow just showing up one day randomly outside the house and then suddenly being scared to go inside or whatever.
Yeah, like that didn't really make any sense to me. It just kind of seemed very random. Like of all people you could have bumped into, it just happened to be Sarah.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, there was a couple other moments like that where it's just like, what just happened? That was just very weirdly put together. Yeah, it was just a little confusing at some points, or just kind of, I questioned the logic of it. Like, what are the odds of that actually happening?
Hmm. Yeah.
Or like, oh
And
yeah, I remember once, sorry to interrupt. The other moment I thought of was like how they constantly would like try to break into gosh, I already forgot his name because I watched it so long ago. Like the headmaster of their house, what was his name again?
Victor.
Victor. Yeah, they would constantly like try to like go into his office or like steal something from him, and he would come
Mhm.
into the room and be like, "What's going on in here?" And I'm like, "They're gonna get caught. They're gonna get caught. They have to." And then every time they don't. And it's like if this were like real life, they would have been caught.
Yeah. Uh,
Anyway.
Yeah, so I guess for me personally, the from what I've seen of the Dutch show, I would have to agree with the sentiment that the Dutch show is superior to the English adaptation. It's sort of like those memes, but they even made one that I posted, where it's like can we buy some of whatever, and then the mom says we got this at home, and then whatever's at home is always a less superior version or whatever. So
Yes, exactly.
mhm. Anyway, so House of Anubis first premiered on January 1st, 2011, and it was a sort of strange sort of how the show is formatted. It was stylized close to telenovela format in the sense that it was serialized. Each season essentially told its own story. But at the same time, at least for the first two seasons, they formatted sort of like the animated shows where each episode ran only like 11 to 12 minutes, and then they put two together into a half-hour episode. And the other thing I will mention before we get into the summary of each season is that during seasons 1 and 3, a spin-off that aired only in the UK called Anubis Unlocked was shown, and it showed sort of a behind the scenes look at how the show was made. I believe some of the episodes are up on YouTube, but I didn't check prior to recording this episode, so just take that with a grain of salt.
I didn't even know that existed, so that's really interesting.
Yeah. And so the summary of each show that I'm about to read is actually courtesy of a Tumblr user who basically I posted asking like if anyone would be able to come up with a summary of a few sentences for each season. And one person who did has username House of Secrets. It's and the summary they gave was very open-ended, and I think that's good because it doesn't really give too much away if you do want to go and watch it. And so for season one, House of Anubis is a drama about an American exchange student who finds herself thrust into the dark side of a British boarding school. Nina, from America, quickly befriends Fabian, the resident nerd, and Amber, the school's fashionista. Unfortunately, Nina's arrival isn't all smooth sailing as she accidentally ends up on the wrong side of the house's punk resident, Patricia. Patricia is concerned about the disappearance of her best friend, Joy, which just so happened to occur on the same day Nina arrived. Nina befriends a local woman, reveals some of the dark secrets of her boarding school house, which is the House of Anubis, hence the title of the show.
Mhm.
We later learn that the local woman is named Sarah and the daughter of the house's builder, well-known robber barons Robert and Louisa Frobisher Smythe. Season one is a wild ride of mystery and intrigue as Nina and her friends race against the house's grumpy caretaker and teachers to find an ancient artifact with the ability to make one live forever. The mystery is complicated by the return of Victor's old friend and nemesis, Rufusino. The season culminates in a dramatic standoff with Nina and her friends coming out on top. That was their summary of season one.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And then for season two, they say season two had Nina and her friends returning for a new semester. While Nina initially hopes this year will be fun, she soon finds herself cursed by an evil spirit. Her and Fabian, who had finally gotten together by the end of season one, break up and Joy returns to the school. Season two sees the return of many fan favorite characters, as well as the introduction of new students and teachers. Nina's friends, the Sabuna Club, are locked in a race with Victor and the new house mother Vera to secure the mythical mask of Anubis. The teens must solve several tasks and survive traps designed by the Frobisher Smiles in order to claim the mask. After several life or death situations, the teens claim the mask, and then Nina gets possessed by the cursey ghost. Things get rather tense, and it looks like our beloved teens will die when the new American student, Eddie, bursts in to save the day. It's revealed that Eddie has superpowers which come into play in season three. And that was their summary for season two.
Yeah, I like that one too. Although I
Uh,
never understood why it just seemed very pointless for Fabian and Nina to break up. I didn't really understand that part very much.
uh, uh, from what I know from the original Dutch show, there was a moment where Nina and Fabian broke up and then they got back together again in the second season, but it was a lot more short-lived in the Dutch show. And so there actually were a couple in throughout the Dutch series, which sort of brings me up to the next point of what happened behind the scenes in between seasons two and three. Basically, what happened was Natalia Ramos, who is the actress who played Nina, left to focus on her schooling, and many fans lost interest in the show because of her absence.
Right.
Uh,
I mean, Loki, I kind of did too. I feel like she did carry the first season at least because she was a
mhm,
really good actress.
mhm.
I mean, definitely Nina was a part of it. I mean, because the third season I could barely pay attention to because she just brought a lot of energy overall to like the entire show. And gosh, I'm forgetting characters' names. Who was the new person who took over?
Uh, if you're talking about the one that was in season two as well, that would be Eddie.
Eddie. Yeah, like I mean, I like his actor, don't get me wrong, and I love the character Eddie because like he also brings like that comical energy to the show, I guess, but him as the new, I guess, front person, it didn't work as well because I felt like he didn't have chemistry with all the rest of the characters. So I think that was the biggest change that I was just not a fan of.
And I guess the last thing I will note for we go into season three is that actually about 30% of the way through season three, the show actually ended up switching networks from Nickelodeon to TNIC, at least here in the United States, which I actually think wasn't as bad a move as it could have been simply because of sort of the more darker themes and storylines in that season.
Hmm.
But anyway, so I guess we'll move on to this person's summary of season three. Season
Although,
three,
is that all right? Is that all right if I ask one more question?
yeah.
So, is there any particular reason why they moved the show from Nickelodeon to TeenNick? Like, I understand that there was like more mature themes, but like, did they ever state the actual reason why they did?
Officially, I don't think so. The closest thing I can think of is there was a lot of people who were asking for it to air more episodes because for the first two seasons they had the half hour episodes, each one airing Monday through Friday, more or less. Whereas season three, they took each episode, which was a half hour long instead of the 11 to 12 minutes, and then they combined it into two, and so it was an hour long, but then they only aired it once a week on Thursday. And so I think that might have had something to do with why it might not have been doing as well.
Hmm.
Uh, and then when they moved it to TNIC, it was actually a little weird because a new episode was supposed to air on a Thursday, which I think was close to Valentine's Day, if it wasn't Valentine's Day, but it never aired on Nickelodeon. It was later put on demand on the Monday after, and then it was the following week when they started airing the new episodes on Tina, including the one that was put on demand. And the way they did that is they went back to it only being a half hour long, and they showed one every Monday through Thursday. Although they also had a rerun of the previous episode on that for the half hour before the new episode. So
Oh, okay. Interesting.
the only thing that I know that was official is that the time they denied they were switching it over to TNIC because they were canceling the show, but there wasn't anything after season three in the TV movie, which we'll get
Hmm.
to. And the TV movie are the same year as season three, so I don't know why they denied it. 'Cause I mean, to me, it seemed like the story was pretty much done by the TV movie at that point.
Yeah, so there was supposed to be a season four, but then they were just like, nah.
The only
Uh,
thing that would make sense if they were to do a season four would be that it would essentially be all new characters, including some of the three that were introduced in the TV movie. But I guess that sort of brings up another point. After the original Dutch series ended, there actually was a spin-off of the Dutch series, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce it in Dutch, but basically it translates in English to the House of Anubis and the Five of the Magical Sword, which sort of went away from the more Egyptian themed and went into more like a King Arthur and the Sword and the Stone sort of theme.
like medieval stuff.
Yeah. I haven't watched the spin-off like at all. English subtitles or not, so I don't know that much about it. But maybe they were thinking of maybe doing something similar for season four. I mean, at the end of the TV movie, Victor essentially left school, and a similar thing happened prior to the Dutch spinoff starting to air, where Victor moved out and new caretakers came in with their own nefarious purpose tied into the storyline for that spinoff. But I don't know if that was be what they were planning for season four. I know I also know that if they went for season four, there was a lot of the main cast that said if there was a season four, they wouldn't be in it. So that might have also been a reason. I don't know.
Yeah, because I heard something like that where they were planning for something. I don't know if it was a season four or if it was another spinoff, but I remember seeing somewhere that a bunch of cast members were like, "Oh yeah, there is going to be something coming," and then it just never happened. Because I also heard that the show kind of dropped in popularity, obviously because well, one reason was because Nino wasn't there, and I guess people were just not as interested anymore, or so I heard. But yeah, if you want to go into season 3 now, I think this would be a good tie-in because
Mm.
season 3 was just I felt was very different from the other two seasons.
Yeah. Season 3 starts with a bang when we learn Nina will not return. And this part, I'll actually interrupt for a second. He says Nina will not return due to her magic possibly clashing with Eddie's and destroying the world. Personally, that's just me interjecting. Personally, I think that that was a silly, not well-written reason. I mean, towards the end of season 2, when we were talking about the chosen one and the Osirian, which is the name of what Eddie is with his powers, is that it was sort of framed that the Osirian was a protector to the chosen one. And we saw some of that play out in the season 2 finale, and we also learned that it seemed like there's supposed to be like a close bond, and then all of a sudden season 3 comes around, and they're like, nope, the chosen one and the Assyrian have to be kept apart, otherwise terrible things will happen. You don't really elaborate on what that is, but it just seems sort of weird
Hmm.
that they would just play it up close connection between the chosen one and Osirian as this sort of Osirian being appealed to the chosen one, and now the chosen one has to be moved away. It just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that was another thing where I was just like, why is this a thing? I mean, I get like why the actress left and why she chose to go to school and great for her, but like and it would have been so hard to replace her because it just does it wouldn't feel the same way regardless. So I feel like after she left, like there was just no turning back. There wasn't much that could have been done, but at least they could have done the story like a little bit better. I don't know how, but like not randomly taking her out of the equation.
Well, I actually did have an idea before season 3 aired as to how they could go about it, but it would require the actress to come back for like 1 or 2 episodes. In the original Dutch show, the character of Appy, who is the equivalent to Elfie, actually gets a curse, and that curse causes him to change appearance. And the reason why that happened was apparently there's some behind the scenes reason why the actor who played Alf Appy had to leave until they brought a new actor in, and so that was the in-universe reason as to why the character looked different, even though it was the same person.
Hmm.
And I thought maybe if they would do something similar where that happened with Nina instead, that might be a way of at least keeping her in the story with a different actress. But obviously, they just decided to write her out in the most lazy way possible. So it is what it
Yeah,
is.
I definitely like your idea better.
Mhm. So continuing with season 3, Eddie takes in the role as the leader of the group and soon befriends a new student, also from America, named KT. The duo investigates the weirdness of Amon Academy, which I guess is the official slash unofficial name for the boarding school. It never was stated in the show. I think it was stated on the website or something that that was the name, but they never really clarified it in the show. Anyway, the duo investigates the weirdness of Amon Academy and uncover another plot by Victor and the teachers. This time, Victor is planning to bring Robert Frobisher Smythe back to life. Eddie and the Club try to stop Victor from performing the magical ceremony, but fail. The newly resurrected Frobisher seeks to capture students and staff members to sacrifice to an Egyptian goddess and steal their souls. Patricia, Alfie, Fabian, Victor, and the headmaster, Sweet, all of their souls stolen and wreak havoc upon the school. Frobisher tricks Eddie and Kate into summoning the evil goddess, and the whole school becomes evil. Eddie and KT save the day with help from Willow. All the couples make up in time to go watch fireworks, and we get an adorable ending scene. And so that was the summary for season 3. And the last thing they summarized was the TV movie called The Touchstone of Ra. In The Touchstone of Ra, it is graduation day for the Anubis kids, and I guess I'll interrupt there again. But something I found out like shortly after the episode aired is that apparently in the UK, which is where the show takes place, there isn't really graduation for people that would be equivalent to high school here in the States. It's more so a college thing there.
Oh,
Uh,
weird. So like do they just like
so like
not
the
even yeah, go ahead and explain it.
so I think what it is like they take a test which sort of helps them determine sort of their schooling like after high school, and then there might be a little get together dance or something, but after that then it's just over, and then they just go on to either the workforce or university or whatever.
Hmm.
And so that was something that some of the British fans were sort of upset with, like, this is a British boarding school, yet they have graduation. Anyway, Mara and Fabian compete for the award of valedictorian, but Mara wins. The kids are on a field trip to a museum and end up accidentally bringing back home a valuable artifact. The house is forced to take in several younger students and introduce them to the world of Sabuna. One of the young students is actually an evil immortal daughter of Frobisher's old friend. She seeks to summon the god Ra and destroy the world. The Sabunas must work with Victor to save the day and stop Mara from being sacrificed. The movie ends with Victor officially leaving the school to protect the touchstone, and all the couples are happy and ready to move on to university.
Okay, now I have to watch the movie. I had no idea that Victor actually left. But I mean, I kind of don't blame him anyway, because he probably also left because he was done with everything. He's like, bye, I'm out of here.
So I guess, like I said, it's very open ended. What the reason why he decided to leave this school was more so to protect the artifact that was stolen from the museum, so it didn't fall into the wrong hands again, essentially. So that's why he left.
Hmm.
Uh, and, and I guess my question is, out of the three seasons, do you have a favorite?
I mean, I just got to go with the first season because it was the most engaging to me. Although it was fun, like I will say for season two, seeing them like have the progression of figuring out like the I guess it's the basement where the maze was, and like I did like the progression and like character developments there where they were trying to figure out how to get to the end of the puzzle and finally get they were going for like was it a chalice?
It was the Mask of
The
Anubis.
Mask of Anubis. Oh my gosh, that the chalice was the first season, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were going for the mask, and I did like like I said, the progression of the puzzle and trying to figure things out, and like Victor
Mhm.
kind of finally getting on to them about it. But the first season, I did enjoy like seeing the characters interact with each other and like getting to know each other, and overall like Nina's character like really I guess being the front person of the show.
Mhm.
We kind of saw less of that in season two, where everyone was kind of working together.
Mhm.
And I mean, I don't know. I love both of those seasons just for different reasons now that I think about it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I definitely think like the first two seasons are superior to season three.
Yeah. I would have to agree that season one was probably be my favorite season. It's an amazing, cohesive mystery story. And it actually connected with me at a very difficult time in my life, and I wrote about that on my House of Anubis blog somewhere. If you want to look at that, I would suggest you do that.
Mm.
Uh, but even though a close second for me is actually season three. I guess more so just sort of the way that story unfolds. I actually like that better to season two. Like I know it's probably not the best season or that well thought out, but for what it is, I actually do like it.
Yeah, I think that's why I didn't really enjoy season three because I felt like it was rushed and like everything was not thought out. And then you had KT who was just like randomly introduced to the House of Anubis, and everyone just didn't really seem to get along with her.
Mhm.
I never really like connected with her character because like the actress just wasn't easy to connect with, and especially if you're in a new place, it's
Mhm.
going to take longer to establish a relationship, and I think that's why I didn't really enjoy that season as much.
Yeah, I haven't listened to this, so I can't say for sure, but I think I read somewhere from someone who had listened to it. Basically, there's another podcast dedicated to the show called Anubis Backwards. And I think they interviewed actually one of the cast members, Brad Kavanaugh, who played Fabian.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he revealed that when they produced season three, it was sort of broken up into four blocks, and actually the first two blocks that were shot were sort of in the middle of the season, and then the third block they actually went back and shot sort of the beginning of the season. And so I'm not exactly sure why they did that, or if they were rating on the fly or what happened there.
Mm-hmm.
Because I guess to me, when I look back on it, if I had to guess, I think each block was what, 10 episodes? It was split evenly.
Yeah, there's a
Uh,
lot of episodes in the last season.
yeah, and so each and so I would say the ones that were the most stressed would be the first 10 episodes and the last 10 episodes, with the parts in the middle being a bit more better paced. And that might be why, because it seems like they might have had an idea of where they wanted to go with the show, obviously if they were filming the show, but it sounds like they were sort of essentially filming like the whole block of episodes out of order in a sense. That would be why it was the way it was.
Yeah, I mean, as an actor myself, I mean, it's not uncommon for like the ending of a show to be filmed first, and especially if it's like a really long project, like a trilogy or like a series,
Hmm.
because they want actors to like, I guess, stay the same age or something, or like maybe they go back in the past or something. I have no idea. That part's not uncommon, but it also depends on what it is, and if it's just like a consistent season like that, it is kind of odd to see like the ending or the beginning being filmed, well, the beginning being filmed last, because by that point like the actors already have chemistry with each other, versus if you had filmed the beginning of the season with the actors not really knowing each
Hmm.
other. That's like in the show too, where they're starting to get to know each other, and you can see the actual, like, I guess it's in real life. There, you don't even really have to act. It's like seeing them interact for the first time. So now that you mention that, it kind of makes more sense to me.
Now, if I had to guess as to why they might have wanted to film it out of order, this is just a guess. I'm not saying this is what happened. The character Amber who left in like the 10th episode,
Hmm.
if the order that I have is correct, that would have been those first 10 episodes would have been filmed in the middle. Maybe that was the only time the actress was available, because I think she was working on another project or something at the time. Maybe that was the only time that she was available. And so they had to figure out, like filming the middle of the season first and then go back to the beginning and then film the end. Like, I don't know. That's just my guess as to why
I
that
think
was.
that's a good guess actually, because
Mhm.
a lot of it wouldn't be the first time that an actor couldn't fit two different things into their schedule. And I mean, good for them, because they're booking more work, but
Mhm.
bad for other TV shows, because then the producers and everyone else has to write around it, which is difficult.
Mhm.
And it's also difficult for the fans, because then they're watching a show where they're saying, well, and it's like, okay, we're saying goodbye to this character, and it's like, what? Why? That doesn't make sense in this universe.
And I guess speaking of characters, now would be sort of a good time to sort of dive into some of the characters. Obviously, we have Ina Martin, who is the main character for the first two seasons, and is the chosen one. And then we have Fabian Rudder, who is the shy, geeky sort of boy and is Ina's love interest. Then we have Amber Millington, who is a rich girl, who's a bit ditzy, but she actually coins the club name Sabuna, which is Anubis backwards. And she, like I said, leaves a quarter of the way through season three. Then we have Patricia Williamson, who is a goth girl, a bit mean. I've seen sort of some comparisons to Jade West from Victorious, like in a character. Uh, and she's concerned about Joy's disappearance and joins Sabuna early on in season one. Then we have Alfie Lewis, who is the class clown who's obsessed with aliens, zombies, and other horror characters. And he joined Sabuna towards the end of season one. Then we have Jerome Clark, who is the misunderstood jerk with a heart of gold. He's best friends with Alfie. He also cooks up many money making and scamming schemes at the school. Then we have Joy Mercer, who is the girl who disappears and is absent for most of season one. And she comes back in season two and sort of struggles to regain her footing and fit in. And she struggles with her mental health due to her whole ordeal in the first season. And then we have Mick Campbell, who is more of an athlete who leaves early on in season two to go to Australia. He does come back though for the season two finale, and he actually is the only main character who is not connected or aware of the mystery or Sabuna in any way. Then we have Mara Jeffrey, who's a smart girl, and is usually at the heart of some romantic B plot each season. And she does find out about Sabuna first in that TV movie. Then we have Eddie Miller, who is the main character in season three. He first appears in season two as a romantic interest for Patricia. He's a bit of a bad boy and is the son of the headmaster, Mr. Sweet, and we find out that he is the Osirian. Then we have KT Rush. She's a new character in season three, an American girl who comes on a mission for her grandpa and is last surviving descendant of the instructor of Anubis House, Robert Frobisher Smythe. And lastly, we have Willow Jinx, who's another new character in season three. She's a bit of a quirky girl, and the way I would sort of describe her is almost like an in-universe fan of the show, if that makes sense. And of course, we have a lot of side characters who are mostly adults, like Victor, who is the strict caretaker of Anubis House, and Trudy Rahman, who is the house mother of Anubis House. Mr. Sweet, who's the headmaster and principal of the school. Rufus Zeno is the main villain in the first season, and I thought it was sort of interesting in the sense that it sort of breaks the rule that the enemy of my enemy is my friend, because obviously Victor's enemies with Rufus, but Sabuna's also enemies with Rufus. And we find out in season two that he was the original Osirian. Then we have Sinkar, who is the main villain in season two and is the ghost or spirit that Nina accidentally releases. And then we have Miss Denby, who is the main villain in season three and is an evil teacher who has stolen her sister Harriet's identity. Then we have Sarah Frobisher Smythe, who is the daughter of Robert and Eliza Frobisher Smythe, the original inhabitants of Anubis House. She's the original chosen one and befriends Nina early on, and she does end up dying in the middle of the first season. And then there's other teachers like Mrs. Andrews, Mr. Winkler, and Miss Valentine, and other adults like Nurse Delia, Sergeant Roebuck, Joy's father, Frederick Mercer, and Vera Devonish, who is the house mother for Anubis House in season two, and a lot more. I could go on forever. So I guess, do you have a character that you relate to the most?
Well, I will say, because there's just so many. I was just Patricia's character that first season where she was like nonstop about joy was like one of the most annoying things that I've ever heard from any show. It was just very hard to like her character and try to relate to her. But then as the season went on and as like the series went on, I mean, it got much better. And Patricia was a character that I kind of grew to like, but it was like, holy smokes. That was just so much to take in for her. And I mean, some of the actors, I'm not going to name like which ones, like they made it kind of harder to relate to the characters because the acting, granted, it was a kid show, wasn't the best. So I don't know if I have a particular favorite character, but out of all the characters that like, I don't know, out of all the characters, I think the only one who like makes rational decisions and takes things seriously is probably Fabian. Cause like I can't picture, I mean, Nina did too, granted, but like, and she carried the whole first season, like I said, but like Fabian just seemed like the most relatable character to me because he was like
Mhm.
questioning things and like trying to figure things out rather than like Alfie, who was constantly joking, or Jerome, who was doing the same thing. So it was like Fabian was the only character that I thought was rational.
Yeah, I would personally have to relate to Joy. She's been a bit unlucky in love and always puts up this facade of happiness, but is struggling internally with her mental health. And I know it's partly attributed to what happens to her in the first season, but I don't know, I just relate to Joy.
No,
Uh,
I definitely like Joy too. I just wish, like, I mean, obviously she couldn't be in the first season much because of what happened to her. But I think if
mhm,
she had more screen time in general, then I'd probably like her character more. But
mm,
she doesn't, like, she's not a character that I remember much because she wasn't in the show as much as Fabian was, if that makes sense. But I do like her
mhm.
character.
Um, and I guess one of the last things I wanted to talk about is some of the more popular headcanons that I've heard among various fans. The most popular one being that KT is a lesbian. Do
Is
you have
there any
any?
particular reason why people think this?
Uh, I guess the big one. Well, first off, she doesn't really have any romantic interest throughout the whole show, and then I guess one thing is that Kitty at one point confides in Patricia that she doesn't like Eddie that way, and I guess some people, for whatever reason, took that as in she's not into like boys at all. So
Yeah, I can see that, but I also can see the possibility of her being ace if that's what people are assuming from her I guess disinterest currently in like any kind of relationship, I guess.
now I've seen that ace thing floated around too, or at least somewhere on the asexual spectrum. But I guess the more leading one is that she's a lesbian.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I could see that too.
Mhm. And the other one is one headcanon that I heard. It's not as prevalent as the previous one, but it's actually one that I can't unsee, and I like your take on this. The idea that the character Willow is autistic.
I've heard about that one too, and I kind of do. I can see why also people also think that she might be autistic.
Mhm. Yeah, I've actually wrote down some of the reasons and why that might be like her famous or infamous scree is more so a vocal stem, and that there's other stems like swaying and hand movements that we see in the series. And
Hmm.
then she also misunderstands people on occasion. Like a few examples that I came across is that when they're talking about the revenge operation on Jerome, she's like, "You're gonna have to count me out. Operations make me woozy." When someone asks Willow where she got her nursery rhyme from, she's heard it from. She said, "My grandpa." And they're like, "Okay, what's his name?" And she's like, "Grandpa." And then the other one being that is that when they are doing the family tree project, she just instead just draws a tree, not doing a family tree. She just draws a tree.
Yeah, that's relatable.
And I guess the last thing I would say is that there are moments where she's sort of socially awkward. Uh, that's sort of the three that I've come across. I guess if you had any more thoughts on that,
Just in general on the show.
like on the headcanon that
Oh,
Willow's
the head
autistic.
cannon. I mean, I think that sounds about right. I really I don't do head cannons that often unless things like I guess really scream at me. Like if there's people will head cannon anything if they
Hmm.
see one thing. I'm that
Yeah.
person that waits for like multiple signs to come up, and
Hmm.
I don't feel like with any other character I've seen enough to I guess head canon something. So I think
Hmm.
everything that you said kind of lines up.
Hmm. And so that's pretty much all I have. So do you have any last thoughts on House of Anubis?
Yeah, I mean, it was just a really great show, even as an adult. I wish they made an adult version of something like this because it would definitely be entertaining to many more
Hmm.
people. I mean, I'm definitely gonna try and see if I can access the Dutch version because if everyone says it's really good, obviously I'm gonna give it a try as well. I just really like how I guess they formatted it for the younger audience. It was kind of hard because it's like I said, I was in middle school when the show came out, and had I stuck around to watch the show, I definitely would have watched it, it may not be suitable for younger kids, and it's not entirely like engaging for teenagers or older audiences, but I do like the fact that it does exist and there is a fandom out there that really appreciates the show and all the characters. And yeah, I mean overall I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was in high school when the show first came out, and so I mean I can sort of see why they might say it might not appeal to certain older audiences. I definitely agree it's not for younger kids at all, but overall it's a great supernatural mystery sort of show, and it is a bit darker than the usual Nickelodeon shows, but for me personally, it's up there with like the iCarlys and Drake and Joshes of the network in terms of nostalgia. And if anything we said piqued your interest today, I would highly recommend checking it out. It's a very underrated show.
There, I will say that it is definitely underrated.
Okay, so thank you for listening to another episode of Beyond the Lens. Join us next time where we'll be continuing, in a sense, to look at high schoolers keeping secrets and leading double lives. We'll be discussing PJ's pick of Hannah Montana.
Woohoo!
But until then, this has been another journey beyond the lens. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Lens. The intro music is Work. That's W-E-R-Q by Kevin MacLeod. It is available under a Creative Commons Attribution License and can be downloaded for free at incompetech.com. Beyond the Lens is a Recore Entertainment production.
Did you hear what I said? Where's
Eric?
If Diesel has unfinished business, there's sure to be trouble right around the corner.